Three, two, one, let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode on the George Habib podcast. The topic I want to talk about today is a bit of I don't know, I feel like people don't want to talk about it as much as they really should. It's gonna be about finance, specifically millennial finance. I've got a guest coming up who's more experienced in these things, more of an expert on the matter. So I'm interested to get his view on our finances, like what's going against us externally, what's happening internally, and how we can work the current system to actually be able to afford stuff. But before we get onto that topic, guys, if you haven't already done so, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share our media because doing so really helps us grow. The more we grow, the more content we can produce, and the more interesting guests we can bring for you guys. Guests like my good friend here, George. How's it going, George?
Not bad, man. How you doing, man? I don't know if your followers know this or not, man, but you had a birthday this week.
Yeah, I'm old, my friend, and getting older.
Yeah, and I know we talked before, but you said you're a sushi guy. So, what kind of sushi did you have? And I would ask you before we get going, what's one thing you wish for your this upcoming year for yourself?
Well, I told you I love sushi, but what I actually had was great Chinese food.
Mm.
Yeah, because I got this place downtown Montreal. Shout out to Restaurant PA. It's a great Chinese place. They have the greatest, like, I always get their vegetable option plus a bunch of dumplings. I really spoiled myself that day. I got extra dumplings. The owner was like, "Hey, George, you don't usually order this amount of dumplings. Why are you ordering a crap ton of dumplings?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my birthday today." He's like, "It is? Well, here you go." He gave me like a pop on the house, like a Coke,
That's awesome.
which was great, but I wanted a ginger ale, but I didn't have the heart to tell him that. You never look a gift horse in the mouth.
That's right. That's right.
What I wish, health for me, health for my family, and to continue having this podcast grow with interesting guests.
Good stuff, man. Best wishes.
Appreciate it, man. So, George, things the viewers should know about you. You are known online as the financial constructor. You've got an Instagram going on. You've got a website going on, both of which will be linked down below. So, before we get into those details, tell us more about yourself. Where are you from? Where you come from?
Yeah, I live in Florida, Tampa, Florida. I've been here for about 15 to 20 years now. Been married for about 7 or 8 years, and I have 3 kids. I have a six,
Damn.
almost 7 year old, 4 year old, 3 year old, all boys. You want to talk about chaos? Get yourself a 7, a 4, and a 3, all boys.
Yeah,
but
but I'm envious, man. I'd love to be married and have kids.
Yeah, man, I can tell you, it's a blessing. I'll be honest with you, man. It's a blessing. First off, I have somebody on my corner, my wife. Well, before that, before her, my parents. They're the pinnacles of my life, right? They've been my rock, my backbone for since the beginning of time. And we all know that there's an expiration date for all of us, right? And one day, mom and dad won't be here one day. But it's good to know that I found a third rock now with my wife, and so it makes life a little bit easier. Now I got 3 new best friends. Three little chaotic kids, but great kids, and it's just family. That's the center of for myself, right? It's my family. I have my faith and all that stuff, but aside from that, I got a master's degree. We'll talk about that later. Whether it's for better or for worse, but I did get a master's degree almost about 10 years ago. Been in healthcare administration. I did that for about 10 to 15 years. I was in banking. I started as a teller, worked my way up, got into investment banking, did that for several years. And then about 3 years ago, I started this coaching thing, and it's been great.
Perfect, man. Like, I just want to say, it's a bit of a digression from the main subject. I want to say, like, I feel like family's pretty important. It will always be important throughout the years, and I do feel we are undervaluing the family as a whole these days, whether through culture or any other stuff. Like seeing you. I believe you are also a millennial.
Yes, sir. 34
Yeah,
years old.
same you, fellow millennial, wife, kids, happy. It gives me hope for myself, and I know there's a lot of viewers out there who probably feel like it's slowly coming out beyond their reach, like it's slowly becoming something that they can't take, like they can't expect to have it easily anymore.
George, I know we're not going there, but I will leave something for everybody to think about. The moments. The moments matter. Every moment. And I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I get caught up, the kids are wanting to play something and I'm caught up, responding to a client that asked me a great question. I'm like, man, that's a great question. Let me see if I can answer this for them, right? Because the client's engaged on what we're doing. But the kids, right? They wanted to play. They wanted to play ball. They wanted to run around. Me to go see what they just drew. And so being intentional about that. One thing that we do, I would tell you about 90% of the nights we all eat dinner together. Doesn't matter how busy we are. That moment, right? We're all together. How was your day? The kids ask me, "Hey, how was work? What's going on? What happened?" And it's those moments matter, and they will continue to matter more as we go on in life. I mean, we just had a pandemic. A lot of us lost loved ones in an instant, right? The moments, they matter.
Hope we all get those moments in the future, man.
Sir.
Now, to get back to what you discussed about your work experience, you talked about being in the medical field, the finance field. What got you into finance? Like, I mean, you could have probably gone for a more useful degree like liberal arts or contemporary Greek poetry or something like that. But why did you choose finance, huh?
Yeah, I've always loved numbers ever since I was young. I've always loved numbers. I like numbers. Even at a young age, I was always into business and negotiating. It was time. There's a story that we always talk about here at with our family, where my sister and I, we would get in trouble. And then you know how like you've seen the meme with Bart Simpson when he's like writing a million things on the board, like I will not
Yeah.
cuss out the teacher anymore or whatever the case may be. So we would have to write on a piece of on a piece of paper, I will not forget to make my bed. I will not forget to make my bed. I wasn't having it. So what I did is I would negotiate at a very young age with my sister, telling her, "Hey, you take care of this, and then tomorrow I will cover your chores." And so since a young age, man, was always into business. I've loved numbers, and then from one thing scale to the other. I would tell you the medical field translated for my mother. My mom was a nurse for decades, and I would go volunteer in the summertime with her. I did not like touching patients. I didn't like the whole patient interaction, blood, guts, and all. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. But I liked the operation of what was happening because it was good stuff happening there. So I told my mom, I said, "Hey, how can I get involved with something like this, but not necessarily dealing with patients?" So there's a business side to medical. And I said, "Really?" And one connected to the other, and forget about it.
So would you say you're a numbers guy?
100% numbers guy. No pun intended.
So that was the medical field. How did you get into strictly the financial field?
Yeah. So let me tell you about the finances when I started my job at the bank, right? So a lot of people don't know this, but I was at a time in my life where I needed a break. I needed a break. I needed something to fall in my favor. I needed it. And I'm sure you've been there. I'm sure everybody, some people listening here are either looking for a break or had just experienced one or waiting for one. But I was at a time in my life I needed a break. And I was applying for a job as a bank teller. And I said, okay, I need this bank job. It will catapult me to multiple places within finances. And I remember the day of the interview. I was so nervous, George. I was so nervous, dude. And I got ready. I had my shirt on, my tie, and I was ready like 2 hours early. Like I'm freaking out because I needed this. So then I start getting to cleaning the house. I'm vacuuming, I'm cleaning, and I'm dusting stuff off and whatnot. And an hour and a half go by, and I'm like, okay, I got to get to work. So I get there to the job for the interview. Mind you, at this point, I didn't realize my shirt was all wrinkled because I had been doing stuff because I was ready and then I was doing stuff. And at the time, there was three people that were going to interview. It's the branch manager, the assistant branch manager, and the head teller. Well, door number 2 and 3 saw me by my appearance. They saw a dude that was wrinkled, a young guy, dark skinned guy, wrinkled, doesn't look like he's ready. And so they go to the office and they tell him, "Hey, we got a guy over here about to interview, but he's already here. So what are we gonna do? So then he takes a peek. He takes a peek and he says, "Well, we got to interview the guy." So they bring me in. Of course, they had already turned off the lights. Like, all right, just another kid, trying to get a position. And sure enough, they asked me some questions. I answered them right with sincerity, and sure enough, they saw that there was a lot more to the wrinkled shirt and the tie that was going on. There was some substance to the guy. So that was my breakthrough, man. And from there on, finance kind of took off from there.
They saw a spirited young gentleman, or did they see like a talented hustler?
They saw a good looking guy, man, but they won't admit it. Nah, man. But the branch manager at the time, he says there was something different about you. He says, I can't explain it to you. He says, you shouldn't have gotten this job. He says, but there was something there. And sure enough, and his name is Lee Hamilton. He may hear this one day, may not. But Lee, if you ever hear this, man, forever thankful for you. And I've told you this a million times.
Shout out to Lee right there.
Yeah.
So how was the banking like? Because I think I got a relative who was involved in banking, and she said it was kind of boring, mundane. Like she was a bank teller, and she said her whole day was like she interned in a bank as a bank teller. Don't know how that really worked. And she said she was just basically like keeping track of finances, making change for older people who refuse to use any digital currency. Like, was it exciting for you? Like, were you where you wanted to be in terms of like dealing with finances, numbers, things like that? Because I could imagine that the most exciting thing of being a bank teller is getting robbed.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping that never happened to me, and thankfully it didn't. But I can tell you when I got the job, I was just happy that I got into the door, and I didn't know where it was going to take me from here, but I knew I was at the gateway of where I needed to get to where to catapult. So I went with the right attitude. I would tell you after a while, you know, five twenties and for 100. I get it. You overdraft your account. You don't know how you overdrafted. Well, let me tell you, you spent more than what you had. We all know. It's not a mystery. But after a while, I superseded that stage of my life. But Lee saw it, and one thing I was good at was giving the folks that came to the teller line advice as to something they should consider doing. Hey, I see you're spending this. Perhaps a savings account, a money market account might help you, or a credit card in some regards. And so I would give recommendations. They would then go to the personal banker, open the account based off of the recommendation. So at a young age and at a very early stage of my career, I saw that folks were listening to some of the advice I was giving to them when it came to finances.
Were you supposed to be giving this advice, or it's something you learned through just working at the bank, and you kind of gave people a helpful push in the right direction that they otherwise wouldn't have had if someone, didn't have a good heart?
So you were incentivized to make referrals. Most of those that were there at the time that were working there didn't have that approach. They would tell you, oh yeah, you can get some sales goals if you do it, but most no, but that's not really what I'm into. So they were really more so making the change and counting the dollars and so on and so forth. But all of a sudden, when opportunities became, I was looking for the opportunities to give folks sound recommendations, so my referrals would go up. And there were a couple times where I for the whole division, I would get number one and whatnot. But I saw that through my efforts in that, the environment started changing. Now, these ladies who were not interested in doing it found themselves trying to make referrals. But it was just trying to give folks guidance and where they needed to go. And I enjoyed that.
Right. And now this is going to follow up more later, but I want to ask, when you've been making these referrals and giving these people this advice, was it a kind of situation where people could have improved their situation pretty significantly if they just were aware of something? Like, was it just a situation of ignorance, or was it something that they only could have found this out if they did like some extensive energy consuming research on their own time?
The advice that I was giving was just more of ignorance, I'll be honest with you in that regard. They just whether they were not interested in taking the time, the extra 20 minutes to do what they knew they should have done. That was a bucket of folks. Some other folks, maybe they were just not in the position in life where they were ready to take that step forward. And then, yeah, there were some people that, hey, I did not know said thing. So then I would encourage them to, hey, go do your research, check into this. And then if you have any questions, you can get with me or the personal banker. But I was almost becoming a liaison for them, generating bonuses for these folks. And of course, I didn't get it because you know how that goes. We
You
never
didn't get
get.
any commission?
Well, I get the referral bonus, and I did get a little
Yeah.
bonus from there. But the actual dollars that were really made from that were who opened the accounts. But of course,
Yeah.
I didn't get any residual from that. It was, how this goes.
No, no, I get you. You so you reached a point where people, your coworkers were really like, well, not your coworkers, the guys you were referring, getting the referrals for, they really benefited from the situation. And I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, you reached a point where you said, I could be doing more or getting more out of this if I started my own business or company.
Yeah. So, we're talking about millennials, right? So we're going into the mind of a millennial at the time, right? I saw that I could do it. At that time in my life, I didn't have the drive to actually take that step forward. And probably a lot of us in our generation, we have great ideas, we have all these innovations, and we don't take that step forward. And at that stage of my life, I still didn't do it. I just saw that I could do it. I didn't do anything about it.
I feel like a lot of people are at that stage, when they're working for either a big name company or just chilling doing their hobby. And I've seen a lot of myself. They're always afraid of taking that next step to actually like taking advantage of their situation or the knowledge they learned. Like I know a bunch of people, they keep dreaming. They've asked me to help them out with the CVs. They've asked me like their thoughts on like, like they have a plan to like split from the parent company, form their own small business, and like you get excited for them, you feel the hype with them, and they don't do it. In the end, they just don't do it. And I don't know if it's either like they really consider the risk or they're just afraid of it. And then I've seen other people like they make beautiful paintings, beautiful necklaces, like it's something they love to do with their hands. And then you ask them, hey, why don't you just monetize this? Why don't you sell this? And then they're like, oh, I can't imagine asking someone for money for this. So, like, either they're afraid or they're undervaluing themselves. And you said even then you didn't get to that point. But having you here, we see you got to that point. You set up your media. You are the financial the constructor. You got your website going. You got your business going. What point did that happen? When did you just like say, well, pardon my French, screw this, time for my own thing?
Honestly, man, I would say around the pandemic, time of the pandemic. Um, I remember, I was in healthcare. I remember how long my days were when everybody was remote. I was starting really early and ending really late, and I was really, really, really tired. And of course, I do my job and I do my best effort, right? But it's not like the dollar figures were changing, right? It was the same effort, right? More increased effort, same dollars. And my integrity to my work ethic just didn't allow me to take a step back on that. But I realized I was like, I'm working so hard, and I'm not exactly seeing the fruit of all the effort that I'm putting into it. And I don't know. I don't know if it's that I had too much time that I was home that I started thinking too much, saying, man, I really should be doing something about it. And I'll tell you, George, there's a lot of people along the way that planted seeds saying, do something, you should do something, you should do something. And I never took it. And a lot of us as millennials, I tell you what, some of the reasons why we don't. We talk about fear, one thing, stability. Mind you, this generation has the highest rate of college graduates. So stability is important to a lot of us, right? We talk about a lot of folks didn't, borrowing school student loans and with debt and all this, trying to make ends meet. So you need some stability to be able to kind of live, right? Fear, stability, and then quite frankly, distraction slash discipline. Very easy in this world right now to get very sidetracked. I mean, you can be, my wife, and this is, for what it's worth. Sometimes my wife gives me a hard time because, like, in the morning, I work out every morning, right? I usually go work out usually about 5 days a week. But after, my thing is that I go at the crack of dawn, because I have, again, a tribe of people in the morning that once they're all up, forget about it. The day's running, right? So I have found, especially over the last year and a half, that my quiet, sacred time is before everybody's awake. And I'm not a morning. I wasn't. Now I am, but I wasn't a morning person, George. So I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym. Start working out. Well, first of all, I looked good, right? Look good, you feel good, the Dion thing. But I started seeing that, okay, I had my dedicated time. The point is that when I talk about going back to the distraction, once I was done, I got home. I was in the restroom now, sitting there for an hour. Now, I don't need to be there for an hour, but I'm there for an hour. Why? Scrolling on Twitter. Somebody's dating somebody. Somebody scored a touchdown yesterday. The president's complaining about this thing, and all of a sudden, time goes on. I'm getting likes, and I'm getting easily distracted. So that's the other thing with millennials, man. There's so many distracting elements around us, and sometimes that deters us from things that we could be doing.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said it already, we're going for distraction over discipline. And I can speak to many people my age. I'm currently in my late 20s. As you said, my birthday happened, so I'm even later in my 20s. I see a lot of people like me. I'm feeling the time. I'm feeling the time pass. I want to focus, like getting a house, getting promotion, getting a good job. But I see a lot of people stuck in, for example, video gaming. I'm in Canada here, so I see a lot of people stuck in alcohol and drugs. I see a lot of people just like time's just flying by, and it's your biggest resource, and they're not really doing anything. And I will say it is 60 to 70% their fault. Like that's the nature, but the nurture is like externally. We live in a culture where ambition is not fostered, it's not encouraged, it's not even like talked about. And in some cases, people think it's like a sin. Oh, you're too cocky. Oh, you're too full of yourself. You got big ego. And then like laziness is just excused. It's enabled. Like, yeah, you can eat whatever you want, eat junk all you want. Yeah, stay in bed. Who needs it? It's your company that's evil. And like, okay, yeah, there are some companies that are basically evil, in my opinion. The rivers don't get polluted out of nowhere.
That's right.
But like they're kind of shaming the corporate life and the work life. So definitely, I feel like millennials are on the wrong track.
Mm.
And I really want your opinion on that. But before I get your opinion on that, I want to have I want to have you explain to us why your opinion truly matters on this, because as you've said, you are a financial coach. Tell us more about how that's like, what you see in terms of customers, like the problems they come forward with, and what you offer like into terms of like solutions to those problems. Explain to us like what a financial coach does.
Yeah. So most people, and I'll speak to myself at that one point, most people are at times doing the best that they possibly can, right? For themselves, right? We're all working, making an honest living, we're working hard, we're going after things. But at times, right? I speak for myself. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I now mind you, I played basketball growing up, but life came, and I put on significant amount of weight, right? And I was doing the best that I can navigating life. It's not like I didn't ever exercise. I would go play basketball here and again. I would go jog here and there, lift a couple weights, but I wasn't necessarily advancing forward as further along as I wanted to. Matter of fact, the effort that I was doing wasn't really yielding anything, because I kept putting on weight even then, because of course my dieting was all out of whack and all sorts of stuff. And it was until that I got some guidance, necessary guidance, to organize my strategy going forward, that I saw the results that I did physically. Same thing with finances, man. All of us are in a pursuit of financial freedom in some way or matter. Now, what financial freedom means to everyone differs, right? Everyone has their own definition of what financial freedom is, but not all of us know how to get there, or have a plan, or have the appropriate strategy to advance forward. And so I tell people all the time, George, the difference between those that are wealthy and those that aspire to be wealthy The gap in between both of those forces is not money. People think it's money. People really believe that, oh, I'm not wealthy because I don't have as much money as said person. And I don't think that's what it is, man. I believe the gap between those that are wealthy and those that aspire to be wealthy is information. And those that are wealthy have the information to make the money that they need to continue to advance forward. And those that are aspiring to be wealthy are working hard, seeking the information. So what I try to do with this coaching program is I try to bridge that gap. That's why I call it construct. We construct the pathway between people and their financial freedom. And that's through financial literacy. And that's something that as people in general, unless you're in the know, right? No pun intended, unless you're in the know, you unfortunately run the risk of operating life without enough financial literacy to get you to where you want to be.
Right. And do you think like the being in the know has become harder? Because back in my parents' days, or even before that, or after that, I'm talking 50s, 60s, 70s, even way earlier than that, 40s, 30s. The code was simple, save up your money, buy property, rent out property, boom, wealth. Now I feel like in our time, 90s to early 2000s, current time, it's become complicated because now it's like we got to consider leveraging debt, getting your principal down payment, figuring out your mortgage, figuring out amortization rates after you buy a property, things like this. Then you have to deal with the legal stuff. You have to register your property, pay, at least in Canada, massive property taxes, follow regulations. And that's just when it comes to real estate. I'm not even talking about like stuff like T-bills, bonds, stocks, shares, equity, mutual funds, trusts, things like that. Do you back to my original question? Do you feel like the information has become more complicated to access?
Absolutely. And it's a multifactorial problem. And I'm down to unpack it with you. I think this is great. But one of the
I'm down
ways
to have it unpacked.
one of the reasons why it's become a little more difficult, and I hate to say it, and shout out to the teachers out there. If you're a teacher, I value, I respect you. We need you. We need the teachers. Teachers should be paid more. The whole thing. But the education system is part of the reason why we don't have access to the information. And you might be listening to saying, what did he just say? I'm going to say it again. The education system is the reason why we are having more difficulty accessing the information needed. Because in school, they're not teaching those essential elements that will help you advance financially. And because of that, and since we're more infatuated with astronomy and archaeology and all this other stuff,
Greek poetry.
Greek poetry and Greek mythology and all that, and hey, shout out to Galileo and the whole group, all good. But Galileo is not going to pay your bills. Galileo won't get you out of being paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And we go into these school systems, including ourselves, right? Including ourselves. I was a victim of it as well. And we leave there saying, man, I don't know how to balance a checkbook, or I don't know how a credit card works, or oh, but they said I can only pay the minimum balance and I'm good. But why is my balance continuing to increase and I have more debt? And it's this vicious cycle that folks find themselves in, specifically the millennials, right? Because we're the ones right now carrying the brunt of it. Fortunately, we went through a pandemic, and the older generation, we lost a lot of loved ones at that time, right? So people are sliding up. Now the boomers are going up. We've slid up now. And so now we're the ones penetrating the market, but a lot of us are penetrating the market with significant amounts of debt and limited financial literacy.
I completely agree. I feel like we've been encouraged to take on debt without actually learning the ramifications of it.
Mm.
And like you said, the credit card. How many times are we going to see an ad for a credit card? How many times do we see, like in the movies, like every time they want to pay for something, they just pull out the credit card as if it's the easiest thing in the world with no consequences? And it is the problem with schools. I want to point out my personal experience in this.
Talk to me.
Me, I only experienced Canadian high school when I was 16. That's when I moved to Canada and pretty much joined the Canadian educational system. What shocked me is that when I grew up in Dubai, I was taught economics at age 12. We were taught about inflation, we were taught about supply demand, we were taught that in times of recession you shouldn't tax more, and that we were also like taught what a recession is, like what's the purpose of saving versus investments. We were 12, we can't really go into the whole terms, like we can't really go into like credit system, stocks, loans, amortization, mortgages. We didn't go into that stuff, but at least we knew things like if we spend more if we increase government expenditure, life becomes more expensive. If we reduce taxes, life becomes cheaper. It's a very basic lesson, but it's something I never saw when I entered the Canadian system.
Wow.
We were like, there was barely any economics involved, almost no talk about how to deal with like taxes, like how to report your taxes in high school. And I feel that why that's unique to millennials is because we are the school system generation.
Yes, sir.
My parents, when they went to school, they were only there to learn like how to speak and how to do basic sums. And then like they would go out into the world and figure it out. Their parents would also teach them a lot of that stuff. I feel like there was a period of time, like the economic boom of like the 60s and 70s, where there was so much wealth that life became so job focused. We started hearing about the career woman, the career man, the salary person. They would go to work, then they would come back home, have tea, watch TV, pass out, start the whole thing again. They really had no time to teach us any common sense.
Correct.
And that's like in general, like it's not specifically you or me necessarily, but
Sure.
I feel like that's in general.
That's right.
Our parents expected the school system to teach us all these things. The school system didn't really teach us any of these things. They kind of said go figure it out in university. And then we spend all this money learning finances in university, if we haven't gotten sidetracked by like ancient Greek pottery classes. And we spent thousands hopefully learning in 4 years what could have just been a 5-minute YouTube tutorial.
Mm.
And the consequence of that is I got a ton of friends who don't know how to report their taxes. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll do it next year, not knowing you kind of have to do it. And they vote, like, not to get into politics, but like they vote based on cultural or media or like feel good stories like puppies or something,
That's right.
rather than, why can't I afford a house?
Mm.
Well, vote for lower taxes.
Powerful.
So I feel like that's from education. We kind of got set up for, don't want to say for failure, but like education did not prepare us for this. Do you feel like there's other external factors going on aside from the education that didn't prepare like us millennials or even Gen Z for actually dealing with finance?
Yeah, I go back to the information. One thing I can speak for myself, right? And I like to give practical examples based off of myself, right, so that others don't feel like they're being pointed at, right? Point the finger at me first. But my in our country, a lot, we're dealing with this right now. We're seeing this go stuff going on in the border, but a lot of us, right? Our parents were immigrants here, in many cases here. A lot of my friends, from Europe and Latin America and India and Asia and all sorts of stuff. And what's happened is that there's a way of life there, and in many cases, not in all. So let's not categorize, but in many cases, a lot of our parents came with much of nothing here, just
Yeah.
in coming in hopes to make to do something better, right? I'm in America, right? That false reality that just because you're here, it's not you're in the land of gold. That just, obviously we know better than that, right? Now, for a lot of you that are crossing the border, wish I could have told you in advance that it wasn't going to be that easy. And a lot of folks that are working now, they're working so much harder now than they were in their country, saying, "Man, I didn't realize how much you." Well, this is how it is in the States. So my parents didn't come with a whole lot, and so they worked really hard to get everything that they got today, and they're doing great. They're blessed, and our family's blessed, and all that. But there was a lot of work, time, sacrifice put in to construct where they find themselves today. because they didn't start with much of anything. So what happens is that when it came to teaching us, the young pups, right now that we're coming up, they're teaching us based off of what they know, right, which was limited because they came in with limited knowledge. But some of it's been influenced about based off of the amount of time that they put in. We can't lose any of this, right? Hey, take care of your money. You gotta, we work hard. You work hard for your money. Save your money. Put it in the savings account. Why? Savings is risk free, right? You put it in the bank, and they're gonna give you, a penny, every year and a half, right? But you're not losing any money, right? You're
Yeah.
not going backwards theoretically, right? So everything you put it in the savings account, and all this. Some folks hoard cash, put cash under your mattress, right? Because the bank system, I don't, you can't trust the bank. It's not you can't trust. Maybe you don't know enough about the bank, etc. And so we were given this information by people that did the best that they could with the limited information that they had. And so we have that. Then you got this school system where they're sending us to saying, get your education, go get your education, go get your degree, be that first one to graduate from college for us. And it was this venture to become the first, to be the one to break through, if you will. And we're going somewhere that also didn't give us the information that we need. So now it's a double whammy going into the real world. And I feel like the immigrant component, not for all, but for a lot of us, is definitely a factor.
I agree. Like, I do feel like, and I feel bad for people who grew up in, like, they're multi generational in Canada, in the States, even Europe, because they never kind of had to feel that, like, financial survival need. So it kind of made them complacent. But I do think, like, in the past, immigrants had advantage in terms of their values and, like, the things they would suggest. Because you mentioned, like, our parents pushed us to go to university, our parents pushed us to save our money, our parents pushed us to make wise financial decisions. And I do appreciate that from my parents.
Always.
But I do feel, I don't want to, not any knock against them, but I do feel they were kind of where they should have been focusing on the value part, which is hard work. They kind of went too much into, like, really outdated advice. Because you're the financial expert on this more so than me. I just read some articles here and there. But if you're in 1980 and you stashed your money under your mattress and it was, like, I guess, let's say 100K, and then you just left it there for a rainy day, you've lost money if you pull it out now.
Yes, sir.
Also, you should probably replace your mattress by now, but, like, you've lost money. And why is that? Because inflation, the money's worth less than before.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to remember off the top of my head the exact accurate information, but, like, let's say inflation was 20%, you lost 20% of the $100,000. The better advice would have been to be like, stick gold in there,
Sure. Or
because
Bitcoin.
that doesn't really, like, it's like, and that's the thing we're not taught. We're not really taught about purchasing power versus, like, valuation. Like, what would be the description better for gold? Like,
Commodities.
commodities. Like, we're not taught that. And also, like, save your money, put it in the bank. It's like, sure, back in the day when interest rates were good and the money was strong, that was good sound advice. But, like, I want to say, like, since early 2000s, that advice mattered less and less and less, because we see the banks still offer you what, a 1% interest rate, a 2% interest rate, but then inflation just
Eats it.
destroys that.
Yes, sir.
Like, you're not really saving anything.
Yes, sir.
And meanwhile, they're capitalizing on your money in the bank. They're loaning it out. They're
Reinvestment.
multiplying what they get back out of it. You don't see a penny of that. You're not an investor. You're not a shareholder. You're a person who just, they hold your money while they use your money.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is blowing people's minds because we're not taught that. And the final thing is, and you mentioned this, and actually have a video on this.
Mm.
They kept pushing us towards university, 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 and not realizing the value of a university degree is not what it used to be.
No, sir.
Back in the 70s, 80s, even early 90s, like, if you were a graduate, you could expect a certain pay level once you got hired in a job. Not even that, you could expect to be hired in a job.
Yes, sir.
Now, here I am. I know you got a master's, me too. I got a post grad in business administration because that's what my parents pushed me to, like with bless their hearts. They That's the information. That was what they knew. And then I spent like many years in the system, like the university system. I come out, I've got debt, and not only am I not being paid high on my degree, no one wants to hire me.
That's right.
So that's pretty outdated information that us
Yes, sir.
millennials and even Gen Z are are dealing with right now. What about you? Like, have you found the same experiences with your masters?
Yeah, man. Let me tell you. I'll tell you the story. Leaving the bank to when I was jumping into healthcare. So at the time, I was getting my master's, and you talk about the piece of paper that you think is going to change your life. So I actually got my MBA while I was I got my bachelor's while I was at the bank, and then I was gonna get my MBA. And so when I got my bachelor's, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get a little extra dollars. They didn't care I had a piece of paper. They didn't care, and I was like, ooh, that surprised me because I put a lot of time, into that, man.
And money.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, you guys don't care? Like it was like hurt, like you didn't care about the extra time that I put in. So, anyways, I went for my master's, and at this point, I jumped over to the healthcare side, and I was doing an internship for a while, and I got my MBA, thinking I was gonna get a job right away. Well, mind you, as I was getting the MBA, I had to take an internship, a 4-month internship with no guarantee that I would get hired. I'm like, but I'm about to get the MBA. What do you mean no guarantee that I was gonna get hired? It worked out, thankfully, but at the time, I wanted to get into some sort of managerial role. And now, mind you, I had some years of experience, I had banking experience. I was in the healthcare a little bit, had a finance background, got my MBA. I'm like, okay, I'm the real deal, man. Someone's gonna land gold here. So I apply. Didn't hear nothing. Apply to something else. Didn't hear
But
nothing.
that's everyone with a master's. The point of a master's was like a shortcut to being a manager.
Apparently,
And no
apparently,
one wants an MBA as a manager. Like no one's even looking at their what's the number one thing they want?
they want experience.
Experience.
That's right.
What is the one thing that gets put on hold every year you spent in university?
That's right. So,
Experience. When you're in university, experience is put on hold. Like you're not getting any. So then you go into the job market. You're basically like me, for example. This is more of my case. You come in as a 28-year-old, and yeah, I've worked different fields, but in this specific company I'm working at, I came in as a 28-year-old. Um, I'm like I'm working with 22-year-olds. Some of them didn't even like start university. They just got a high school degree.
yep.
And I was told from the start, like, oh, your master's is going to get you there. It's that what they want you. This is a very competitive job.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's like, no, your interviewer will tell you whatever they want. Maybe they think, oh, this guy's got a master's. We can get him for a bargain. And then you come in and no, nothing. You find out like other people who make more money than you. It's because they've been there longer.
They've been learning longer. That's how it goes,
Yeah.
man. 14 months, George. 14 months I was applying to get my first managerial job. 14 months. Mind you, that means I had a master's degree for at least 14 months. And I'm sitting there saying, this wasn't it, man. This was not it. And it made me wonder, did I waste money and time for no reason? And again, I'm all about pursuing education. If it's you need it and you feel it's a benefit to you, have at it. But if you believe that you getting the piece of paper is the reason you are going to get to X, Y, and Z, I'm telling you now, you might as well stop here, stop the tracks, save the interest, save the debt, and pursue experience before the education.
100%. What I like to suggest to people, especially my baby cousins, take 1 year off.
Mm.
Because in high school, we're like, my parents, bless their hearts, but they were very pushy about it. Pick a university now. I'm 16. I'm still in high school. Now. Like not like I didn't plan what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I had no clue how to like progress through that system because it is a path through
Yes, sir.
university. You gotta pick the right classes. You gotta time your credits. You gotta see what post grad schools want. And like we're rushed into this major decision of our lives, which is going to cost us years off our life while someone else is gaining the experience to get paid more than me.
Yes, sir.
And we're spending all this money. in Canada, I know in Canada it's not as bad as the States. I feel like in the States, like there's like billions of dollars in student debt,
Oh
and a
yeah,
lot of that from people who really didn't know what they want to do, and their degree hasn't even led to them doing what they want to do.
correct. And the system still wants their money on the 15th of the month.
Yeah,
They
you
don't
can't
care
claim
that you
bankruptcy on student debt.
yeah, they don't care that you're not working for it. That's your problem. But you went to school and you borrowed my money. I need it back with 7.5% interest, right?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of folks that are not in their careers, which is exactly what you're saying. They're not in their careers. They have this degree and it's of no use. It is a very expensive piece of paper right now.
Yeah, so I recommend, like, take that gap year. Work at the work at the bottom of the hierarchy of the companies. Try working as a plumber's apprentice, try working as like an intern at a bank. Try, if you like marketing, go into marketing. If you like social media stuff, try give your hand at it. Work some summer jobs. Figuring out Figure out what you like to do before you spend all this money and time trying to reach there.
Yes,
Because
sir.
what ends up happening is, instead of like having no university and starting at the the bottom hierarchy of a company, we're spending years of our lives, hundreds, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt
Hmm.
to end up at the bottom at an older age.
Yes, sir.
And that kid who started without university, he's going to get paid more than us.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the outdated information our parents give us. Again, bless their hearts, it worked for them in their time.
Yes.
What is, as you as a financial coach, what other outdated information you see, like aside from like save your money, because we know inflation screws that, what
Sure.
other outdated information, outdated instructions you see out there that parents keep giving to their kids that it's actually just doesn't apply anymore?
Yeah, there's a few things. So, one of the things that most of us were taught is that we have to work more to make more money. Work longer, work harder, get a second job if you need to, etc. And so a lot of us and a lot of people that I encounter, they get into a bind. And they're telling me, yeah, yeah, I'm struggling right now. I got to pick up more overtime at work. Well, you mentioned something in the beginning, which is, and if anybody missed it, I'm going to reiterate George's point. This was absolutely powerful. Your most valuable asset in your life is time, by far. And I mentioned it earlier about the moments, right? The moments are matter, right? That moments come with the price of moments is time, right? So time is your most valuable asset. So if you are going to use more of your valuable asset to acquire another asset in money, there's only so many hours in the day you can use to get money, right? And so what one of the misconceptions is you need more time to make more money. That's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous belief to have. Very dangerous, because those that you're working for, if you're employed by a company, those that you're working for are doing the exact opposite. And I'll prove it to you. You want to know why? Because
Why?
you have a job. Because you have a job, you're cutting their amount of time that they have to work to make money. So guess what? You and I, whoever's listening to this, you are a passive income generator for somebody else. And so it's actually finding ways to make money in less time is the way you kind of advance forward financially. Because if you can save your time and make more money, then you can reallocate time if needed to propel you even forward. But if you can move forward without spending as much time, that's the key. And so folks say, okay, you probably listen to this. Okay, so how am I supposed to do that? Ah, here's one. This is a free one for everyone here. The focus is always about net worth improvement. I'm going to repeat it. The key is net worth improvement. And the equation for net worth improvement is your net income less your total expenses. And all my millennials, you guys know, if it's a math problem, that means there are two things that can influence the difference. You can either make more money, which is net income, or you can decrease your expenses to improve your net worth. So, what am I trying to tell you? Before you rush to go spend your most valuable asset in time to make more money, pause, and reassess what's coming out first. Are you spending too much going out, getting sushi? Are you spending too much drinking? Are you going to too many trips? Are you swiping your credit card too much? And maybe, just maybe, some of the advancement you're trying to do, you're currently eating or drinking away. So if you can cut that back a little bit, number one, it didn't cost you time. And two, you improved your net worth.
100%, man. And like, but like, can we really fault our parents for saying put more hours in when it's what helped them in their time?
That's the problem, man. They worked so hard, right? For all of us, right? We didn't get here by ourselves. They worked hard and they worked a lot of hours. And so they're just telling us what they know.
Yeah, and you know it worked in their time. You know, a time where like purchasing power was a lot stronger, where taxes were a lot lower. There was
Mm,
less inflation. You know,
mm.
you could buy a house for like 80K,
Wait,
100K,
let's talk about the house.
and
Let's
and
talk
they
about the house,
and
man.
I just want to mention like they're right. They had higher mortgages at the time, and we have lower mortgages than them. But the difference is if you got a house that's 80K, a 20% mortgage of 80K of an 80K house is a lot less than an 80%, sorry, not 80, an 8% mortgage of now we're seeing the average house in Canada going to like $500,000, $600,000. And that's average.
Yes, sir.
And like, that's like, that doesn't even consider like the really populated areas where people want to live, where it goes even higher. I'm seeing houses 700, 800, 900, a million. It's ridiculous. And what I like about your advice in this is that you're telling people work smart, not necessarily harder. But even though I do think like when you're working smarter, you're still working hard, you're just getting more out of it. And that's what they don't teach us in school and what our parents don't teach us because even they don't really know this stuff. They don't teach us of like I don't know what it's called, but like maximizing time efficiency.
Yes, sir.
Like they don't teach us about compound interest. They don't teach us of like investing in capital. They don't teach us about like buying into other companies. You know, acting as an angel investor while they make the money for you. We're not taught this. And
Yes,
in
sir.
university, they take us 4 years to teach us something. Respectfully, like a 5 minute video on YouTube can teach you.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
And you
there's a
said you
lot
want to
there.
go into houses, I
Yeah,
believe.
let's go into houses, man, because let me tell you something. One thing that I'm noticing with a lot of folks that are in this program is they all aspire to get a house. And there's a lot of you here that are listening to this that are probably trying to buy a house or trying to get there, not sure how you're going to get there because you can't afford it. Well, here's the problem. One, there's a few problems here. And I think we should talk about this one for a little bit in the packet because what I would like to do here is to give folks the lay of kind of a baseline of the what's going on. And then what are the things they should consider going forward when it comes to the buying a house? Number one is that the interest rate. You talked about the interest rate. The interest rate right now, the average interest rate is about 8% for a mortgage. Here's the problem. Buy a $300,000 house. Just before the pandemic, you could probably get a rate for 3%, 3.5%, right? That's significantly less interest. So if you are making a decent salary, you could probably get by because the interest rate was 3%. Now it's 8%, which means that the payment is significantly higher. And so now folks are not able to qualify for a mortgage for a particular price of a house. Let's say 300,000. Well, number one, the housing that they would like to buy is no longer available because, like to your point, the prices have increased. So now there's nothing in their range because they can't afford it. And they're saying, but my buddy got a $300,000 house. Well, yeah, he did. 3 years ago, he did, right? And so he got it. And although you think you can afford a $300,000 house, you probably could if you had the same interest as they do. But this interest rate environment now is a lot different. So a lot of folks are not qualifying. So that's number one. Number two is now the credit problem. Let's talk about credit scores. A lot of folks, there's a lot of people out there, George, right now that don't have a great credit score. Number one, they might not even be aware that they have a bad credit score. Number two, they might be aware that it's not well, and they don't know what to do about it. So The other thing I would tell you is that in this interest sensitive environment right now that we're facing, and quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, I think next year in 2024, we're going to start seeing rates start to cut back. It's going to be about a 2-year process probably. So,
How come?
huh?
How come they're going down?
Yeah. So okay. So that's a great question. So right now and I won't be I don't want and that's one thing about me. I like to explain finance in a way that's easy to understand, digestible. If I'm talking jargon about finance and doesn't make sense, there's no value. So one thing is that there's a group called the Federal Reserve, which control the monetary policy of the United States of America. So basically, they're the ones that are in charge of interest rates and so on and so forth. So, since the pandemic, we've obviously seen inflation go through the roof, which is unsustainable for any of us. And so they're working on bringing inflation down. So inflation is starting to come down. But to bring inflation down, rates got to go up. So rates have been going up for the last 2 years. And now they've kind of held them steady to see, okay, is the economy going to still come down without it crashing or starting a recession, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the thing. Once the Federal Reserve sees that they believe that the economy is somewhat under control, meaning that inflation is somewhat manageable, then they'll start cutting rates. So they've been increasing rates because the economy is strong. Okay, strong economy. We got to increase the rates to bring down the amount of dollars being pumped into the system. But if the economy shows weakness, okay, now we can let off on the brake. So here's the thing. The reason why we're going to start seeing the interest rates start come down is because we're going to start seeing a slowdown in our economy going into next year. Okay. And
Right.
so since it's showing weakness, and we're seeing that already. I'll give you an example. Tesla. Everybody loves Tesla. Everybody knows Tesla. You got the electric vehicles. Anybody's been noticing all of a sudden a price of a Model S or one of the base models of the Teslas is somewhat reachable. Oh wow, it's in the high 30s. That used to be like a $60,000 car because Tesla was struggling to make sales because nobody can afford it. So they
Yeah.
had to cut down their prices, and now their margins are razor thin because there's not a lot of profit because it's not 60, now it's in the high 30s. And so we're seeing already a slowdown happening. It's going to go further, and then the Federal Reserve is going to let off a little bit, and then they're going to start cutting back the rates. But what might happen is what's going to happen might be similar to what happened in 2008. We may see a recession happen because that's what's going to start cutting back the rates. And so if you're patient enough and you don't need a house right now, I would say in about a year, half, maybe 2 years, it'll come back, maybe not exactly in your zone, but it'll be somewhat closer to your zone for you to be able to strike for a house. But the point is the credit influences your interest rate, right? If you have bad credit, they can get you approved for a 13% car loan, right? Sure, you get a car loan for 15%. Who wants that, right? But if you have a good credit score, they'll bring it down. So another thing I would tell folks is focus on your expenses and review your credit history. See what's influencing your credit, you're bringing down your credit, and start working towards those things. Call the collections company, make those payments, figure out how to make the payment. Don't go to the club for a month or two. It's okay. They'll be all right. Use that money and pay off the collections, clear out your credit score so that you can start preparing yourself to have a higher credit score so that you can get a lower interest rate when the rates go down later on.
Right. But like, yeah, like the thing is, I feel like people don't have that financial sense. I feel like even my own parents don't have that financial sense because that's past their time, when things was a lot simpler. And I want to expand on what you said about going to the club because so far we've been talking about like the external factors affecting us millennials in terms of finances. Kind of, we got to deal with the fact that university isn't important anymore. The education system, don't be too strong about it, but basically they failed us as a whole. Maybe certain individuals here and there doing good, but as a whole, I feel like they failed us in North America. And then you also got like what other people would say is a bit of a complicated financial system, and they're not aware of like whatever external force kind of plays with that.
Yep.
Now I want to go for. Now I want to move forward with kind of giving. Now we kind of like gave some people. So okay, to recalibrate, the common complaints I get from my parents and their generation, that is that we're being lazy,
Hmm.
we're not showing initiative, we expect the easy life and things like that. I want to talk about what are we doing to screw ourselves internally when it comes to our finances. You mentioned the club, like spending, throwing all this money at the club. I don't like clubs anymore. I used to. Now it's just a loud place where my ears ring and I smell like crap and my wallet is dead.
That's right.
I also would argue like people are spending way too much money on Starbucks. Like each coffee is like $20 these days, not even including tip. I would also say like we're focusing on short term enjoyments, like
Yes, sir.
little dopamine hits, not ensuring like a long like a long term happiness where we've got an established house, we've got an established family, we've got the wife and kids. Like in addition to this, or expanding on this, what are we doing to screw ourselves in terms of our mentality and our culture, the millennials and the Gen Z?
You said it. You said it already, man. It's the short term mindset. That's it. And it is a product of our system. That's the problem, though, right? We're being programmed to have instantaneous gratification, results, pleasure, etc. It's part of the issue, man. I mean, if you're hungry, you can pop in a frozen dinner, put it in the microwave, and in 2 or 3 minutes, you're good. Off you can eat, right? Now you got this whole Chat GPT thing. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna write. All right, let me speak it into this system, and it'll spit out for you whatever you need in moments, right? And the you communicating with somebody, for example, you can easily communicate with somebody across the world in a moment, right? Through text message, email, WhatsApp, DM, whatever. So we're programmed to have instantaneous, right? Everything is so instant, and that's part of the issue, right? We're programmed for that, but there is a discipline about going about business, right? Learning about the discipline, the consistency of things, right? It's like exercising. I didn't. I mean, I dropped all the weight and the body fat, but it took me almost a year, and I was getting up. Not a non-morning person, getting up every day to get after it. Why? Because I knew the goal. I knew my north. It's another thing, and we can talk about that in a second about the north. But it's the discipline, George. It's the discipline. Everybody wants it right away. There's no enjoyment in the process. You got to enjoy the process, enjoy the grind, and there's no enjoyment in the grind anymore. The second thing is that sometimes it's direction, man. The north. You gotta know what your north is, right? There's a value in north. Why? Because if you know where your north is, it doesn't matter. Let's say you're in the wilderness or in the woods or whatever, doing something, and you're looking. Okay, I'm heading somewhere. Okay, you see the North Star. Okay, you know where north is. For the rest of the way, it doesn't matter if there's a catastrophe, earthquake, the lights go out, whatever. You've already identified that this is the way I gotta go. Doesn't matter anymore. It really doesn't matter anymore. I know this is the direction I have to go next. A lot of folks don't have that north, right? Where they're going next. They're living day by day, taking it as it goes. I'll figure it out later. That's another thing. The procrastination, figuring it out later, and so we're setting ourselves up for failure. So lack of the consistency in the process, understanding that it's a process, and then understanding, putting direction for yourself, right? Where are you going next? And without those two things, we lose a lot of time.
Man, we gotta find something we disagree on because I just keep agreeing with what you say. Like I do agree. Like
Well,
our generation is
You're
all.
a Raptors fan, aren't you?
I'm a Raptors fan.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Canadian sports.
All
I
right.
got
So
I got the one hat, the Vancouver Grizzlies, and that's just because I like the color.
we'll find
But like,
something.
yeah, like I said, completely agree in terms of like the instant gratification. We're always looking for shortcuts, Like we'll have back in the day, a trade union was more about work condition. Now people are starting unions. They just want to stay where they are, but be paid more for just staying where they are. Like I'm seeing a lot of people protest. They want higher wages, they want more benefits. No one's really looking at like actually being promoted or switching companies, developing their skills. They just want to be paid more for the single hour. They're not using that hour, as we said, to like capitalize on anything. And we and back on the thing we mentioned before, the distractions.
Mm.
Like we want that hit now. We want to be like, we're always looking for shortcuts. People thought crypto was the shortcut. A lot of people got burned on crypto. They were looking at like what was trending on social media. They weren't actually looking at the financial trends of these individual cryptocurrencies. A lot of people like not to get into this mature subject, but like they want to start an OnlyFans. A lot of ladies these days, I think it's a shame they want to start an OnlyFans because they look on social media and then they're like, oh, look at these ladies bragging about how they earn thousands a month, and it's like the truth is the average OnlyFans model earns like a couple of hundred a month,
Oh my gosh.
and yeah, the people want to go out clubbing, they want to drink, they want the sugar in their coffee, these short-term dopamine hits because they we live in a culture of here and now and easy.
Yes.
When as we discussed, a lot of this financial planning is financial planning. You got to look at your life 5 years from now.
Sure.
You got to study if you want to get into stocks. You got to check financial trends in the market. You got to look at 5 year growth. When you look at mortgages, you got to figure out your plan. Like if you want a 10-year mortgage, 20-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage, you got to figure out what you're actually losing in terms of the extra money you're having to spend. We don't have that in,
Yeah.
in millennial culture, and I would dare say Gen Z culture.
Yeah.
Like, we're not taught it, but we also don't take responsibility for it. And we can see that in our politics.
Mm.
When it comes to politics, we vote based on images. We vote based on, oh, Trudeau is a handsome dude. That's why I vote for him. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like that was a big factor in it. We vote based on emotional appeals. Like I'm going to see a lot of politicians and candidates championing like ideological stuff or societal stuff or cultural stuff. It's like, bro, I just want lower taxes.
That's right.
I want a stronger economy. Maybe when I was 22 and like very like revolutionary, which you see a lot in the university,
Right.
I could justify voting based on emotional appeal, not realize that I was living the good life as a residual of still living with my parents.
Yes, sir.
But now I'm 29. I just became 29. And I wish I thought of my finances years ago. I wish I took advantage of the time instead of just like pursuing the partying life where, I could be happy in the moment, not before, not after, just in the moment. And it's such a short term happiness. Now I want to have a house. Guess what? Can't afford a house.
Mm.
Now I want to make investments. Guess what? I was never taught about bonds, treasury bills, mutual funds. Now I want to have a family and start kids. But now I'm stuck having to focus on my career, and also whichever partner I'm going to have also has to focus on her career. No one really has time for the kids. No one really
That's right.
has time to build a family because even though I do believe more in traditional families, we live in a world where we can't reasonably expect to ask our wives to put their whole career on hold to have kids.
Yeah.
And what is like that? I'm going to say the buck ends with us. That's our fault.
Yes, sir.
What I want to ask you, George, how do you feel about that? Like, is it justified that I'm saying these things from your professional point of view?
Yeah, there's a lot there, man. There is a lot there. The first thing I would tell you is that what we're noticing is that, and to just your last point I want to talk about. A lot of folks are getting their, back in our, the days, our parents they were having kids. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are having in their early 20s, sometimes late teens, but early 20s, right? Just starting young, having kids. Most folks are having kids into their 30s now, man. Why? For a few reasons. Well, number one is probably self-gain, right? Focusing on their career path and pursuing something, right? They're in pursuit of something, right? Trying to get some gratification. But two, it's expensive, man. It's expensive. It's
Jeez.
expensive to have kids. There's a friend of ours that wants more kids and you know can't right now. Why? I don't know how we're going to make ends meet if we do it. And it's becoming very expensive, right? Expensive to have kids. So the quote unquote dream life, if you will, that folks pursue, sometimes they're delaying it further because they're not exactly where they want to be financially. And to your point, a lot of it is time lost along the way, right? We got distracted with life. The distractions of life came and got us. And then of course the lack of information as well. But one thing also that I see that this our generation has in particular, and this is a big one too, man, is it's the lack of trust in the information. Now, quite frankly, I blame social media for this one. You got an open platform of all sorts of information, real information and misinformation. It's just a platform of that. And to your point, folks get burned, when it's bad information. Some other folks do well when it's good information, but you just don't know what you're listening to. You don't know who's real. You don't know what's real. And what happens is sometimes we lose time because we can't navigate ourselves because we don't know. There are so many voices and so many roads. Which one is it? Because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Hey, I'll help you out here. I'll support you. Hey, I'll support you. Hey, I'll support you. And you don't know which one is who. And someone's conning you. Someone's taking your money. Someone's a scam. Someone's this. Someone's real. The whole thing. And you just trying to navigate. So you say, you know what? I'm just going to stay right here because it's safer for me to not take a chance thinking that this is good information or not. And so the trust is a big thing with Gen Z. The trust issues. That's also a factor, man, because we don't all know have the answers, right? From the moment we came on Earth, we've had to all develop a level of trust because we couldn't take care of ourselves for the longest of time, right? Someone had to, whether it was a guardian, a loved one, or parents, whatever. Someone. Oh no, it's good.
Sorry about that.
Nah, that's all
That's
good.
Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. So, but we've always been dependent and trusting someone from the beginning. But along the way, you've seen a lot of stories, man. Abuse, sexual abuse, and molestation, and deceit, and abandonment, and all these things happen. And a lot of that stuff happened during our time, right? Folks getting left, the dads left, and all this and all that. We became jaded when it came to trust, but we have been from the beginning. We were birthed into trusting, and now we are trying to take that back and say we're going to take control of ourselves, but we don't have all the answers. None of us do. I didn't have all the answers, several years ago when I was struggling financially. I had to open myself up and become a little more vulnerable to say, hey, I'm gonna trust this information that this someone's given me. And it was great advice that changed everything from there on forward. But our generation struggles with trust right now, man. And I
I
think Gen Z
completely
is
agree.
even worse.
I completely agree. Like, because it's as you said in the beginning, we trusted what our parents said, which was kind of outdated advice. We trusted what our schools taught us, which is kind of useless. And we trusted that our government would take care of us, the university would see us through. And then you find out the whole concept of inflation and tax based on government action. It's like, is this really for our financial benefit? And then we end up in a place where, and I always say this story, people say I say it a lot, but I will say it. When we were young, you and I, our friends, everybody, we knew who the poor kid was at school
Mm,
because they had a small house. That's how we knew who the poor kid was. Now we've reached a point where if you have a small house, you're considered pretty wealthy.
mm,
We used to be like the like having a house, starting a family. The way our parents talked to us about this was a given. It was expected. Even like a person working as a janitor in the 80s could reasonably save up, buy a house, be the sole earner in his family, and even save for their kids' college.
mm.
Was it easy? No. Was it doable? Yes. And now those things don't apply anymore. Even like if I let's say I do have a house and everything and I want to save for my kids' college, it's not enough to save for kids' college. I have to make a financial plan.
Yes, sir.
I have to take into account inflation, taxes, many different equity packages, things like that for my kids' college. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Like when I see you, George, and you already told us about your kids, your wife, your I'm assuming you have your own place, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it gives me hope, and I hope it gives the viewership hope that a millennial can still achieve these things. That it's not all gloom and doom. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are doing this. You are giving millennials the proper advice their parent, like they wish their parents in school gave them through your Instagram, your website. And that's why now, as we go towards the conclusion of the video, I want to ask you more about what it is you do as the financial constructor. Like, what kinds of advice do you give? Like, what can our viewers expect to like gain from checking out your media and following your words?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, George, this is we've talked beforehand, man, but this podcast is this generation needs this. The world needs this. The people need to hear this stuff because they're thinking it in their mind, and then someone's conveying their thoughts through this platform, and then having an engaging conversation, and hopefully it connects them back to their consciousness, right? What they had been thinking about for a while. Wow, you know what? That's right. Maybe I do need to, you know, get that business going. Maybe do need to start investing or whatever the case may be. So, big ups to you, man, and keep doing your thing on this.
I appreciate it, man.
As it pertains to the coaching, so there's very simple why. Well, let me give you the why. The why is because I care about people and their financial future. It's very simple. They're very simple message behind it. But with the coaching program, number one is that we focus on 6 fundamentals. Expense management. I already talked to you guys about that one. I gave you guys a free nugget on that one. Expense management, budgeting, savings growth, net income growth, investing, and succession planning. Those are all 6 factors. Those are all things that are connected to our financial journey. And again, the key word is a journey. You're not getting there overnight. You're not getting there in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year. It's going to take you some time. But with time in the journey, remember, it's a journey, meaning you're heading somewhere. So number one, we're going to point you where you need to get to. And 2, with your consistency remaining in the path we're taking you to, you'll get to your end destination. But expense management is focusing on the expenses, man. That's the baseline of everything. Most of our problems are within our expenses. And if we can clean that up, we start improving. Budgeting, right? Got to organize your money. You don't organize your money, you don't really have anything. You can't play guess how much is in the bank account today. You can't play that game, especially now with this environment with inflation and all that stuff. So we focus on budgeting. Savings growth. Everyone's got to save money. We always say you want to save 3 to 6 months of your total expenses on the side for a rainy day. I mentioned earlier, I think a recession will eventually come. People are already losing their jobs left and right. Some people can't get jobs. And so it's nice to have that on there. Net income growth. There is a value in making money, but just remember, that's the 4th principle. After these other things, then we talk about making more money. So there's other things you can be doing first before you use your most valuable asset in making money. Investing. Everybody likes the idea of investing. I want to learn how to invest. I want to invest. I don't know what I'm doing. We give you the baseline as to how to create an investment vehicle for yourself. We teach you how to fish. As we say, we teach you the skills to pay the bills. So if we can teach you how to do it in a manner that allows you to do it on your own beyond us, then we're empowering you to learn how to invest. We do that. And a succession plan. You talked about earlier briefly with the trust, right? Some folks want to know, how do we keep our earnings, right? So that we pass it to the next generation. Creating vehicles that be able to give it to your kids without having to deal with the taxes or the government messing with your hard-earned earnings. So we work on that and give folks education with that. And so I do have an Instagram. I like to engage folks out there with it, with the content there, just asking questions or giving some good information. We do have a website just for folks to access it. And then we do have a private community where it's called the Financial Freedom Builders. And it's a platform there where it's a community of individuals like-minded as you pursuing financial freedom. And so we get together there. We put articles, investment opportunities, challenges we do. I do a monthly financial class, usually the 4th Tuesday of the month. The 4th Tuesday of the month, I usually do it. So we're actually going to be doing this on Tuesday, the 24th at 7:30. It's actually going to be the 3rd part of a 3-part series that we did, which is 3 indicators of a potentially good investment. So some folks want to know what's a good investment. How do I identify that? So we gave 3 indicators, and we did 2 engaging class, and we're going to do 1 more on Tuesday. But it's a great community, man. But it's a community led by somebody that truly cares about you and your financial future. And I put it into practice by being involved in your life and supporting you.
I can honestly say I know a ton of people who need this. And guys, as we say, like follow him on social media, follow his Instagram, check out his website. All the links are going to be down below. There's truly going to be, my opinion, value from your advice right there, George.
One thing I would say, George, before beyond just this program, I challenge everybody. I challenge literally everybody that's listening to this, whether you're a millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen A, if you're still around, doesn't matter. Whoever's listening to this, that you take something from this and apply it to your life and challenge yourself to be a better version of yourself tomorrow. See, a lot of times with folks, we compare ourselves to one another. This one has this one doesn't have this. I have this or whatnot. Focus on being a better version of yourself the next day. And did I do that? Did I accomplish that? Where did I go wrong? What do I need to do to be better? And if you take that focus, you'll get to where you want to get to ultimately, just being a better version of yourself.
I 100% agree with that, man. George, I really want to thank you for your time, for joining us as a guest, for your words of wisdom, and also like pretty much explaining what should have been explained to us in school about like going through an overview of like finances and all these things. I would actually love to have you on in the future because I feel like there was a whole lot more I wanted to talk about, but otherwise it would have been a pretty long video. So I extend that open invitation to you.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
Yeah, dude. I think listen, there's so much to unpack, right? And in general, just life, finances, right? They're all connected, but there's stuff about just us as millennials, man. We can relate with this generation, right? We're in the trenches, right? We're in different areas in the trenches, but we're all in the same grind, getting somewhere. And if we can empower people, empower our generation to be better, and giving them the resources, right, to be better, dude, this is worth time, man. This is why this podcast is so valuable, man. I commend you for this, man. Much respect. This is just the beginning. I know this thing is gonna go much bigger, man. This generation is global, which means this podcast needs to become global.
I really appreciate that, man. I feel like you're giving me too much credit. I feel like the real value of this episode was you.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate
No
that.
worries, anytime. So again, thank you, George, for coming on. Hope to have you more in the future. Guys, as we said, check out his social media, links down below. Follow his Instagram, check out his website. And guys, if you haven't already done so, as I said before, like this video, subscribe to this channel, comment down below what you thought about the podcast, what you agreed with, what you didn't agree with, and the value you feel you got from our guests' words right there. Yeah.
Dude, have a great 29, man. I'm excited about your 29. It's going to be a good 29 for you, man.
I'm scared of 30, bro. Apparently 30 is the big milestone.
Yeah, be careful with 30, man. Take it from a 34-year-old.